watching Gearz.
You know, the gearhead world is full of innovative people that are always building, always creating, always pushing that envelope to see what they can come up with next. And the cool thing is, when they're successful, everybody benefits. And this is how we put men on the moon.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And created the electric guitar and the television set. And the musclecar. And the personal computer. But unfortunately, these epiphany moments, when somebody creates something that's totally new, totally unique, well, they don't happen very often. But when they do, you can feel the effects across the nation, sometimes around the world. Well, one of these moments happened in the mid-70s when a guy named Bob Chandler decided it was time to put bigger tires on his pickup truck.
And I drove it about 5 miles from the dealership to my house, and the first thing I did was change the tires and wheels on it. And I brake axles, so then I put bigger axles in the truck. Then it comes down to the problem, well, I didn't have enough power, so you go to a bigger engine, you modify the engine to make it, more powerful.
Of course, the tires kept getting bigger and bigger, and the axles kept breaking and breaking until one day in 1978, Bob decided to put massive military axles under his truck. Now, since the front and rear axles on a military truck are interchangeable, why not put steering axles front and rear? And the term 4x4x4 was born, meaning 4 wheels, 4-wheel drive, and 4-wheel steering.
I'm driving down the road doing 60 miles an hour, and I move my foot and hit the steering. And all of a sudden, you got to counter that with the front steering wheel, okay? And I run a Corvette off the side of the road, and went back to the shop and says, that's got to change.
As the truck began to gain notoriety, it wasn't just the size of the rig that got people's attention. It was also Chandler's heavy-footed, balls-to-the-wall driving style, which earned him the name Bigfoot from his peers. And when that big-footed driver crawled up into that big blue truck, the persona of Bigfoot the Monster Truck was born. Then one day, Hollywood came calling with a low-budget, B-grade film called Take This Job and Shove It. Now, while the movie came and went with little impact, the big blue truck with the crazy rear steering was forever burned into the mind of every gearhead who saw it. And it set the stage for monster truck mania.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles!
Now, when the Beatles hit the Ed Sullivan Show in 1964, the resulting mayhem that was Beatlemania was both historic and hysteric. I mean, the world had never seen anything like it. And for almost 20 years, nothing even came close to rivaling it. Then, in 1983, in the Pontiac Silverdome, in front of 68,000 people, Bob Chandler decided to use his massive Bigfoot truck to crush some cars. And the rest, as they say, is history. Because with that simple action, the monster truck officially arrived, and people went crazy.
Back then, the whole safety thing was a cowboy hat and a seatbelt. That was it.
I love it. And you're hanging out the window.
Hang out the window. My son was in the cab with me, and we kind of went up on the top of the cars, and 30,000 people jumped the wall. I said, wind your window up and lock your doors, because they were coming all around.
From there, monster trucks with names like Gravedigger and Predator began to spring up all over the place. And of course, leading the charge was Bigfoot. With newer versions of the truck always appearing, you never quite knew what Bob Chandler and the guys had up their sleeves. But you could be assured of one thing. Size did matter. And that's why Bob was always smiling. Over time, improvements continued to be made in the design and handling characteristics of the trucks to not only make them perform better, but also protect the drivers and equipment. Gone were the old leaf spring suspensions and the chrome roll bars in the bed. And in their place were state-of-the-art 4-link suspensions, that allowed the rigs to do incredible stunts, and full roll cages and safety gear that allowed the drivers to survive those incredible stunts. Simple car crushing gave way to side-by-side racing that not only included crushing cars, but also allowed these big trucks to get into the air and fly. And all this just added to the legend that when Bigfoot rolls into town, you're gonna get a show. Welcome back to Gearz, where today we're walking you through the incredible story of the original monster truck, Bigfoot, and the whole monster truck industry that's grown up around it. Now, there's a lot of people out there that think that these big, massive trucks are just thrown together by a bunch of redneck hackers with hardly any brain cells and even fewer teeth. Fortunately, nothing could be further from the truth. Take a look. In a well-equipped facility in St. Louis, each Bigfoot vehicle is put together by a group of craftsmen just like you'd find in NASCAR or NHRA. State-of-the-art chassis are designed and fabricated using the latest tools and techniques to assure not only durability of the rig, but also serviceability.
It's a really cool job. You have the best job in the world. But, you know, nobody really sees all the work that goes behind it. You know, not only here, but the guys on the road, they do a ton of work when they go to the show.
Blown and injected engines are assembled and tweaked so that when the driver mashes the big pedal, thousands of horsepower screams alive to spin those 66-inch tall tires. The bodies are fiberglass, which allows them to be pulled on and off the chassis in just a few minutes. That's a good thing, since these bodies take some serious abuse. Of course, all this would be impossible without the help of sponsors to shoulder some of the costs of keeping Bigfoot rolling.
We got involved with Bigfoot and the monster trucks a couple of years ago now, and we just thought it was a great opportunity to get involved in a really cool event and a really cool brand.
Without them today, we would not be in business. We wouldn't be able to do that without sponsors.
But this is a win-win situation because it also allows the sponsor to test and develop new products for both racing and the consumer market.
Now, we are looking at developing a race-specific program that would be designed for the circle track, the dirt track, and Bigfoot.
So the big question is, where does it go now? With all kinds of world records and accolades to his credit, has Bob Chandler and Bigfoot reached the end of their popularity? Are they bound for extinction like the dinosaurs, or to end up a footnote in automotive folklore like the Boss 429 engine? No way, not by a long shot. With a whole new generation of fans coming to the shows, new sponsors, and new technology, there is no way a gearhead like Bob Chandler is just going to fade off into history. His footprints are just too big. And one thing you can count on, whatever he does next, it'll be big. For the longest time, one of the slickest modifications that you could do to a car or truck was to shave the door handles and smooth everything down. The problem is, on a muscle car, shaved door handles don't look that good, because on these cars, the door handle was actually designed to accentuate the style of the car and give you some polish here. So, the next thing that people did was Pirate late model door handles because they were a little more flush. The problem with that, though, is that those door handles don't look so good on a muscle car. They're the wrong size, they're a little too small, and they're just not a shape that people liked. So at this point, people started to think, is it even possible to combine two classic looks, two classic tastes together and create something that's totally unique? Well, the good news is it is possible. They did it with this, and now we're gonna do it with cars, and you're gonna love it.
My chocolate is in my peanut butter. It's doggone good.
Solution comes in these very cool flush mount door handles from Dave Kindig at Kindig Design. Now, if you'll compare these to an original door handle, notice that they're roughly the same shape and the same size. So you're gonna retain that classic look down the side of the car. But when you look down from the front, these guys are gonna pretty much disappear. So you're gonna have that smooth look that you're after too. The best of both worlds here. Now, I know some of you guys are looking at this going, that's cool, but how do you open it? Very simple, take a look. All you do is push here to unlatch it and pull there to open the door. Now, of course, you have to weld these new door handles in. And I know some of you guys are going, oh no way am I gonna cut into my classic door, I'll mess it up. No, you won't. This is something that you can do, and we are gonna prove that to you. Okay, the first thing you need to do is strip the door. Which means the door panels and handles need to come out, as well as the windows and the window tracks. Now, this is also a good time to clean things up and check for rust, because you don't want to do this modification on a rusty door that needs to be reskinned or replaced. Now we'll take a template of the new door handle and we'll set it in place on the door. Now remember, this is a universal kit, so don't expect this just to drop in place and be perfect. You have got to make it fit. Now on the Cougar, the back of the door here is right up against the back of the opening, which means we're gonna have to slide this door handle forward enough to where that pivot point clears, which means it's gonna open up possibly a little hole there and another gap that we'll have to fill later on, but that's no problem. Now, you're gonna wanna spend some time here positioning it just right. Hey, somebody dropped this?
Yeah, I think a dog licked it.
Because you want the handle to sit level and not be crooked. Taking measurements will not only help you make sure it's square, but it also makes it easy to duplicate the handle position on the other side of the car. Now, once the marks are made for your cut, you need to sit back, take a deep breath, and make sure that this is actually something that you want to do. Because at this point, it's still possible to chicken out, forget about the whole thing. But what's the fun in that? So, once you decide this is what you want to do, just cut out the metal. And an air saw or a jigsaw is the best tool to do this. The key to welding sheet metal is to go slow and move around using a series of spot welds that you slowly join together until they form a single long seam. Now I'm using a MIG welder because it's quicker and better at filling gaps that might come up, but a TIG will work too. And if you take your time, you shouldn't have any warpage issues no matter which one you use. Next, we'll make the little patch panel to fill the rest of the original hole. Now remember, the more time you spend here making it fit right, the better the finished product is going to be. When the welding's done, take a grinder and dress down the welds until you have a smooth transition all the way to the opening. When you're finished grinding, very little body filler should be necessary to make this perfect. Finally, reassemble the door handles. Okay, the big question is, was it worth it? Did we actually make the car better and more unique? Or did we just screw up a classic? Well, if you'll take an original door handle, put it up there against what we just did, you'll see we got the same basic vibe going on here. This is much more unique, much more modern. Then when you look at it from the top, you can see just how nice and flush this actually fits into the body. Then check this out. Just pull the door open. Man, is that cool or what? This is one of those modifications that people will look at and they will try to figure out what you did, and that's what you want. And now you get to do the other side.
Tool Tech, brought to you by Cornwell Tools, the choice of professionals.
You know, metal comes in all shapes and sizes, and there's all kinds of tools out there to help you bend it and cut it and roll it and shape it. But if you're working on a car or truck project, one style of metal you're going to be working with a lot is sheet metal, because that is what most cars and trucks are made out of. But if you're going to be building floors or a firewall or a bedside that you don't want to flex and bend on you, you're going to need a different tool than what you're seeing here. You are going to need a bead roller so you can do this kind of stuff. That's what we're going to take a look at. The bead roller is a tool that has two roller dies in the end that have opposing shapes machined into their surface. Now, when the metal is passed between the dies, the shape is pressed into the metal without distorting the metal around it. The resulting ridge in the metal not only looks good, but it also adds considerable strength and rigidity to the panel. Another cool feature about the bead roller is how maneuverable it is. It allows you to create all kinds of designs and shapes in the metal just by rotating it around between the dies. This is where having an electric bead roller with a deep throat really comes in handy, because it allows you to roll beads deep into the middle of a panel. The electric motor keeps you moving smoothly and consistently, and should you need to back up for any reason, it's just a simple matter of pushing another button. Now, this particular bead roller from Woodward Fab is nice because it comes with 3 different dies for rolling different size round beads, 3 dies for rolling square beads, and 1 die for cutting and shearing metal. Now, if you don't work with metal much, you probably don't need a bead roller. But if metal is your deal, you'll be surprised how many ways you'll be able to use a tool like this. And the best part is you can get a little small manual one, or you can step up to an electric one. All you have to do is decide which works best for you.
Now, quick tip, brought to you by E3 Spark Plugs, born to burn.
Ever since the first car rolled off the assembly line, hot rodders have been trying to get them lower down on the ground. And today there's all kinds of kits and products out there to help you do just that. But the cheapest, easiest way to lower a vehicle is to cut the coil springs, or torch them, as they said back in the day. And that is where people run into trouble. If you use a torch or a plasma cutter on spring steel, you'll heat it up too much and ruin the temper in the steel, and it'll be worthless as a spring. If you try a hacksaw or a sawzall, you'll just burn up a bunch of blades trying to cut it because it's too hard. No, the best way to cut a coil spring is with a cutoff wheel, because first of all, it will cut the metal. Second of all, it's not going to heat it up too much and destroy the steel. Now, one thing to remember, the amount that you cut off of the spring does not correlate into how much drop you get. It's easy to take off too much. So a good rule of thumb is to cut off a half of coil at a time, then reinsert the spring, put the car down on the ground and see what's going on with your ride height. This way you'll be able to dial in exactly the stance that you want without going too low. And the best part is, it's only going to cost you some cutoff wheels and some time. That's not bad. If you'd like to learn more tips that makes your life easier in the shop, check out the tips page on the website.
What are you working on? Brought to you by Dake. If you have the dream, we have the tools.
Today's What Are You Working On comes from Joey Burnside from Albuquerque, New Mexico. And Joey is a serious gearhead, which makes him just like all of you out there. What makes him different than you guys out there is he is only 8 years old, and he has submitted his dad's truck for What Are You Working On. Now check it out. Here it is the day Dad brought it home. It's a 2007 Chevy Duramax, and the first thing that father and son did is tear into this truck. Now here's a shot of them, father and son putting on a whole bunch of Gelbanks performance stuff. Then of course they tore off the front bumper. Here they are tearing the truck apart up there. And then of course they put on a 6-inch lift kit. And when all the smoke cleared, here is what they ended up with. That is a great looking truck. Now you're probably looking at that going, well, what do they do with it? Just sit there and look at it? Oh, Joe Sr. drives the truck all the time. Here he is out on a drag strip wearing it out. Here he is off-road. And as you can see, little Joey is never far from his side. Matter of fact, Joey writes in and says, over the years, my dad has taught me how to work on vehicles, so I wanted to see if it was possible to feature his truck on the show. Well, Joey, it is possible. Matter of fact, here's what we're gonna do for you. We are gonna give you one of these Dake arbor presses, so the next time your dad's working on his truck, needs to press in some bearings or bushings or something like that, he's got to ask you to use the press. Now, the rest of you guys, if you want to get your vehicle featured on the show, you got to go to staceydavid.com, send some pictures and texts in to What Are You Working On, and we'll do our best to get it on the air. All right, that does it for us today. I know you got some stuff to work on, so get out there and build something.